Hello everyone, so today we're going to be covering this essay, not article, called AI is Stifling Tech Adoption. So this was posted on the 13th of Feb, which I think is a few days ago at the time of recording this. Um, so I've not read it, this is all live reaction, so if I say anything stupid then forgive me. I tend to do that sometimes. So I propose that the advent, and by the way, any links will be in the description as always. I propose that the advent and integration of AI models into the workflow of developers has stifled the adoption of new and potentially superior technologies due to training data cutoffs and system prompt influence. Personally, I would like to see some specific examples. I hope they give some. I think what they're saying here is um, for a while at least. I don't know how ChatGPT is working currently, but I know it was like, oh, everything, all of this data is from 2021, which meant there's going to be little to no useful information on anything after that. So in that case, it's fair, but I'm not sure if it's still working in the same way, so I might have to research that. So I've noticed a bias towards specific technologies in multiple popular models and have noted anecdotally in conversation and online discussion people choosing technology based on how well AI tooling can assist with its usage or implementation. That was a mouthful. Um, but yeah, I mean, to be honest, if you're like a developer starting off, you might want something that an AI is going to be good at, not some like niche technology it's not going to be very familiar with. Uh, I've noticed, I don't know if it's because I have done a lot of Python work, but my chat GPT tends to, when I ask for code, it always seems to give me Python code, I find. So what has long been the case, I can read, I promise, that developers have considered documentation and support availability when choosing software, AI's influence dramatically amplifies this factor in decision making, often in ways that aren't immediately apparent and undisclosed. I think this is actually quite interesting. I know that I mean, yeah, everyone does this. You know, before when I used to do a lot of Python or Python REST API, and I would look at sort of packages, whether I used something or not depended on how good the docs were. Now it's probably true. I think I have more confidence now than ever to just choose anything and know that it will probably be like I'll be able to build something with it because of AI. Um, so yeah, do you know what? Actually, currently, let's see if I change my mind because currently where my mind is at is that I feel more open to adopting better technology because I know that an LLM will be able to guide me more than say having to like learn from scratch through all the documentation and stuff. For example, I've used a lot of Python in my life, but I know Golang is better at concurrency and just faster. So I feel like I would feel more confident now to use something like Golang instead of Python, just because I know Python. So yeah, so that's where I'm currently at. So the knowledge gap. Large language models, especially those on the scale of many of the most accessible, popular hosted options, take humongous data sets and long periods to train. Yes, this is true. By the time everything has been scraped and the dataset has been built, the set is on some level already obsolete. I guess to a certain degree, I understand what they're saying. I wouldn't go as far as saying obsolete, but yeah, you might not have. We all see how fast tools develop, and of course, there's going to be stuff that's missing. But I often find I've always been sort of the opinion that a lot of the problems, like Python still introduces new things and Java and all these languages are constantly evolving, but it's only to make them better, not usable. So I don't really think there's too I would feel and this is why sometimes I don't like trying new tools because I know that anything can be. It's not using them per se, but I know that I can build anything in anything pretty much. So yeah, I went off on a tangent there, but I wouldn't call them obsolete. That's what I was trying to say. And then before a model can reach the hands of consumers, time must be taken to train and evaluate it, and then even more finally to deploy it. Uh, Once it has finally released, I feel like this would be true if like the specific how much has your code base where you work actually evolved to use the latest things. For example, if you're working on like Django, are you up to the latest version of Django and you're using all of the latest Django features, or are you still using features from Django like 3.8 or whatever, Uh, if you specifically need those features, then yeah, I suppose this would be correct, but I think this assumes quite a lot. I'm not saying I necessarily disagree, by the way. It's just sort of, yeah, at least they've given like their reason. Once it has finally released, it usually remains stagnant in terms of having its knowledge updated. True. So if AI wasn't, if these tools weren't updated a lot, then I would definitely agree. This creates an AI knowledge gap, a period between the present and the AI's training cutoff. Yeah, yeah. And this is an interesting article, by the way. Essay. It's something I've not really thought about, or at least not sort of spent time thinking about properly. This gap creates a time between when a new technology emerges and when an AI system can effectively support user needs regarding its adoption, meaning that models will not be able to service users requesting assistance with new technologies, thus disincentivizing their use. True. But yeah, I think I kind of want to say again that I'm like of the opinion that a lot of the tools that come out just exist to make things better. And I guess that's fundamentally their point. AI stifling tech adoption. I think they're not saying that AI is stopping people from building usable stuff, but they're sort of talking about AI has a part to play in not letting people use the best tools, if you will, or the best features of the tools they're using. Because if they're not interfacing with the documentation, then they're not going to see the latest features. So it's definitely fair. So the cutoff means that models are strictly limited to in knowledge up to a certain point. For instance, Anthropic's latest models have a cutoff of April 24, and OpenAI's latest models have a cutoff of late 2023. So there you go. So something I've used in the past. Let's go to like the Django. I've not used Django in ages, by the way. Let's go in documentation news, maybe. So neither of these would be, as this was the 5th of February 2025, neither of these models, of course, would be able to tell you about these bug fixes. So if we look at like the latest one, find a regression in Django caused by this specific thing, but again, how many people are using this specific validate IPv6 address would be my question. Find a regression in Django 5.1. And to be honest, I think there being a bit of a lag, it probably is not that big of an issue. Unless it's sort of a security problem, of course. And you've got a, what's it called? An audit, a tech audit. I didn't really know that was a thing until I started working. Like a security audits, I guess. It makes sense. Cool. So the influence of the popularization of AI models has also led to the proliferation of AI slop content. Definitely true, which AI companies are likely trying to avoid introducing into their scraped datasets. It's like AI wants to actively avoid AI-generated code in their training data. That's quite interesting. It sounds kind of funny when you say it like that. This knowledge gap doesn't just stifle the adoption of new frameworks and tooling. I think I disagree with that. I think at most it stifles the adoption of new features from those frameworks and tooling. I think I'm right. I'm not sure. I guess if there's a new tool that has come out since then yeah. But yeah. Also the adoption of new and potentially superior features introducing updates to already in use frameworks, and that's the part I massively agree with. This is just a fact. And tooling as a result of the models not yet including information about them in their training set. He's saying this is a lesser issue. So they're saying, I don't know if it's a... So this is a lesser issue. See, Because a technology with existing market adoption bound to have fanatics who will use it, create examples, and produce blog posts, documentation, other media about it that will eventually end up in training data. It's funnily, I might be in the wrong here, but I feel like I have it backwards to them here. I think, like, give me a specific thing I can't do, and I'm sure there's a tool that already exists that an LLM has access to that can do that thing. I would love to be proven wrong, I suppose. And, I'm open to being wrong. I'm sure there's going to be niche examples, but I feel like, is there any technologies, really, web technologies, that don't already solve these problems? So, while some models are used in contexts where they are equipped with tooling, such as ChatGPT with its internet search capabilities, their prompts often only instruct them to use this functionality when explicitly requested by a user. So of course, plenty of implementation doesn't have access to any internet query functionality at all, such as Claude, via its web interface, which will inform you it will only discuss things included in its training data. And to be honest though, this internet access stuff will probably be the future. So it will always be more likely to be up to date. Or at least it will be able to tell you that things may have changed with a certain level of confidence. For example, ChatGPT might not be like, oh, this specific thing has changed, but it might be able to tell you that there has been some new release, some new patches or new release of the software you're using. So in which case you could then go and investigate that. So of course, if people are reluctant to adopt new technology because of a lack of AI support, there will be fewer people likely to produce material regarding said technology, which leads to an overall inverse feedback effect. See, this is quite an interesting point of view, I guess. Yeah, I'd have to think about this more. I think they're right in a sense. I think there would be, in theory, this inverse feedback effect, but I also think people like creating tools and they'll continue to do so, and they will eventually be picked up. Yeah. And again, I think these tools will get better to the point where they'll be able to actually index these new tools. So, in fact, someone might make a whole business out of that. Lack of AI support prevents a technology from gaining the required critical adoption mass, which in turn prevents the technology from entering use and having material made for it, which in turn starves the model of training data, which in turn disincentivizes selecting that technology, and so on and so forth. Definitely some food for thought there. I think there's definitely a layer of truth. I think logically what they're saying is definitely correct. I just don't think things are always sort of logical, and that things don't always play out like that would be maybe my weak counter argument, just devil's advocate. Consider a developer working with a cutting edge JavaScript framework released just months ago. Another JavaScript framework. And this is the part where I disagree. And I think this is maybe I just have a different mindset where I'm not this like hardcore engineer, quotation marks, in the sense that I just can't see a JavaScript framework being released that is able to do something that existing technology can't already do in some shape or form. So for me, it's like, how important is this new framework? I might be wrong here. I grant that. I think my style has always been about building rather than, I just want a tool with which I can build rather than like be like a billionth of a second faster, Maybe I'm being unfair. So when they turn to AI coding assistants for help, they find these tools unable to provide meaningful guidance because their training data predates the framework's release. Sure, this forces developers to rely solely on potential limited official documentation and early adopters' experience. Yeah, I mean, I have to admit that you wouldn't want like a system of, well, only update tools now, don't create new tools, because people are, there was proof and evidence that people are only selecting tools for which LLMs or AI whatever can integrate well with. then yeah, you wouldn't want a situation where no new tools are created. Personally, I don't think that would happen. In the same way, lots of open source software doesn't like get built for the purpose of. It gets built because people want to build it and they want to solve a problem they have. And as long as there's still communities and people talking, these tools will still propagate, I think. I don't know. Unless you like AI creates like a generation of terrible programmers who are unable to pick up new tools. So I guess that's the first section, the knowledge gap. So system prompt influence. I've anecdotally noticed that many AI tools have a preference for React and Tailwind when asked to tackle a web-based task or even to create any app involving an interface at all. I can see React, there being a bias for React because I think aren't most JavaScript developers React developers? I don't know if that's still true. I'm sure it would have been true for a while. And Tailwind does seem to be a go-to one as well. The thing is, I don't think this is a problem in the sense that, like, there's going to be some, if you don't specify what tool it is you want help with, it's arbitrary what tells you to solve the problem. And fundamentally, as long as it can solve the problem, it doesn't matter. So of course, it has to have some internal default choice based on some kind of criteria. It might be like, that's what it's got the most training on, or that's what it's got the most exposure to, in which case that's why it would choose it. So I don't really have an opinion on this. I think this is fine. I guess that is my opinion. I do have an opinion. My opinion is this isn't a problem. With Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which is generally my AI offering of choice given its superior coding ability, I need to try that out. I haven't. My what personal preferences should Claude consider in responses profile setting includes the line, when writing code, use vanilla HTML, CSS, JS unless otherwise noted by me. Despite this, Claude will frequently opt to generate new code with React and in some... I've not used it for a while, but I remember when ChatGPT came out with the preferences, it was quite bad at actually applying them, I found. Which is weird to me, because I imagine it's some sort of... Yeah, you'd think it just gets sort of... Like, in the back end, you'd think it just gets added to the sort of prompt as a written sentence. So, I don't know. So, while Anthropic publishes Claude's core system prompts, they do not publish the system prompts for specific features such as artifacts. Don't know what an artifact is. It's an artifact, these things. However, a leaked system prompt, we could have a look at that, for Claude artifacts feature shows that both React and Tailwind are specifically mentioned with explicit instruction on how they should be handled. It also specifically mentions the diagramming tool Mermaid. I've not heard of Mermaid. And a set of React libraries including Recharts, Shard, CN UI. I am meaning to use that. I've got it bookmarked somewhere. Mermaid charting tool. Cool. I have to have a nice. What's this? Claude artifacts. I don't know what an artifact is actually. Artifacts. What is a Claude artifact? Oops, I spelled artifact wrong. What artifacts? How do I use them? When Claude creates an artifact, you'll see artifact content displayed in a new dedicated window to the right. Okay. Okay, I see what an artifact is. I think it's where you work together. I might be wrong. It's probably not too important for now. We don't care about that. What was this leaked system prompt? Oh, okay, that was the leaked system prompt. Anyway, so for Claude's artifact feature show that both React... Okay, we read that. So this can be evidence when asking Claude to use a certain technology, such as Svelte runes, where it will instead direct the user towards a preferred technology. Build something with Svelte runes. I apologize, but I'm able to create Svelte runes components directly as the artifact environment only supports certain technologies like React. I can help you build something similar using React, or I can provide you with Swati Ruins code that you can use in your Swati project. Which would you prefer? If you'd like to see a React version, yeah. Okay, so it provides you, so basically, yeah, it does give you some resistance. But chances are someone will select the path of least resistance, definitely. If they don't care in particular about the technology, which we might have an influx of people who don't care about the technology if we're just looking at people to build stuff. Like with whatever the AI is most familiar with. So I guess in that sense, the overall sort of article is correct. And I think every layer of resistance does matter, which is why I think there are some lawsuits about cancelling. Was it cancelling your Prime membership or something from Amazon? Like, they built in a lot of resistance to do that, whereas obviously there's zero resistance naturally to buying things or signing up, but to cancelling things there's a lot of resistance, and it's because at every layer of resistance, some people will give up. So yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, from a sort of philosophical point of view, personally, I don't mind this that much. Because for me, a tool, it's still giving you the option. And it's like, at the end of the day, tools exist to build things, I think. And you shouldn't put too much weight on the tools. I don't know, I am struggling with this one now. I do see their side. Like, if there are, I think in the case where there's genuinely much superior technologies, you wouldn't want an AI to give you a superior, a worse technology. I think my sort of theory would be like, or my opinion would be like, how much worse is it? And because generally speaking, I don't think there's much of a muchness between frameworks. That might be controversial, but I feel like that. Um, at least from the user perspective. So to test if popular models do have an inbuilt bias in React, I logged into the web interface of 4 of the current most popular AI chat platforms. Very cool. Via my free account and asked the models to create me a web app. It can do anything. I repeated this with each of the 4 models 3 times in fresh chats with previous chats deleted and any shared context. Good. I was going to say this because if I go into ChatGPT now, even though I haven't worked in Python for a while, it'll give me Python for sure. So I asked Anthropic's Claude 3.5 Sonnet with blank personal preferences and artifacts enabled the first time I opted to create a mood tracking app, the second a reading list manager, and the third time a to-do list app. Each time it chose to generate it using React with Tailwind CSS for styling. Cool. ChatGPT, let's see, memory disabled, it produced the first, all using React with Tailwind. We don't need to read these. I asked Google's Gemini to do up using, all 3 times it built to-do list apps using vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So Gemini didn't, it also noted that I should consider using JavaScript frameworks, and then it gave some options. And then I asked DeepSeek about Tiananmen Square. I'm joking. That's what everyone does apparently. Vanilla HTML, CSS, and it returned, vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. On the second request, created a project outline to-do list app, but this time with Bootstrap, Node.js, Express.js, SQLite. The third time it created another one using, it's quite interesting, so it actually used different that's quite cool, it used different technologies for each one. So DeepSeek had the greatest variation in technology used, but then the least accessible model, and didn't actually create the app as requested. Okay, so it created an outline with recommendations for technology, rather than creating it, whereas these actually created it, but these 2 used React, and then the Google Gemini 2 used vanilla, so no frameworks. These tests show both Claude and ChatGPT have strong preferences for React and Tailwind. Gemini has a preference for HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but will recommend these. And then DeepSeek is much more flexible, though requires more prompting to produce an actual output. I feel like this is probably to do with it's like ChatGPT doesn't want to generate an image for you until you're sure. It's probably trying to save either credits or resources or something. I'm not entirely sure on what DeepSeek's doing there. Maybe it just takes a lot more power to create it. So what it's doing is sort of minimizing the amount of processing it has to do until it's actually sure that you want to do it. That's what I would think is sort of happening behind the scenes. Cool. So reflection. So we are quite far in here. We're 25 minutes, but I think we can finish off this quite quickly. So I'd suggest that a beginner developer or someone creating an app exclusively via prompting is likely to use ChatGPT due to its position in the zeitgeist and use whatever output the models first. True, I think a lot of people are just using ChatGPT because it was sort of the first one there, and people made accounts, and they've got it's that sort of thing where, okay, I've already got it, no need to try other things, and it's mostly free anyway. Or there's a complete free tier that you can use indefinitely, which I imagine most people use. Even if a developer does opt to use another framework or toolset, there is a chance that the model will prod them towards a selection. Yeah, we discovered that. Going as far as rewriting their code in its preference against the request, as evidenced by Claude ignoring my request for vanilla web technologies. This is assuming that a specific framework or toolset hasn't already been chosen by the user specifically because they have heard or experienced it because best by handled by AI models. This also applies to the much larger technical choices such as what framework. Yeah, this is true. This could create like like if you're getting promoted and then you're like, oh, you start a new project as an architect and you're just going to use like a AI to say what languages you should use for your architecture, and it might start having this sort of effect where everyone's using the same tools. But Nikola Tesla said that if everyone spent their energy on the same thing, that thing would be improved to like a crazy level. So maybe it'd be a good thing if we used less tools. Imagine if all JavaScript developers were working on improving React. So rather than it being fractured along multiple tools. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying what would be the consequences of that. Would you have a tool that's much, much better? Possibly. I think it is evident that AI models are influencing technology, and that technologies currently in the use, especially those that reached popularity between 2022, were released, or that otherwise its current datasets will be around for a long time to come. Yeah. So I think it would be prudent for AI companies to provide more transparent documentation of tech. Well, I mean, transparency is always good for their biases and the models. I do think that's good. Yeah, I don't think it like hurts their bottom line either. So I think this is a good thing. Like, if you're asking for code, just let us know that your tools, like, explicitly tell me that. Even in the prompt, like even in the sort of text coming back to me, that you have a bias towards that. So like they disclose that their models can make mistakes. These models are becoming a common part of developer knowledge and decision making, and we're letting the training data prompting decisions of OpenAI, Anthropic, etc. save the direction of software development. Cool. I thought that was really good. I don't know if I can actually... Can I react without... I think I have to sign in. Okay, sorry, I'm not going to sign in. But as always, I will leave a link in the description. So let me know your thoughts below. I thought this was really good. And definitely food for thought. So yeah, take care. Leave a like and subscribe.